Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our attendees joining us today for this latest IoT Central webinar. This is David Oro, your host. I'm the editorial director with IoT Central. I'd like to start off our event today by thanking Eris. Eris is a wonderful supporter of the IoT Central community, and we are honored to have them as sponsors. Today's webinar is entitled Utilizing IoT and M2M Analytics to Optimize Your Fleet Operations. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today's event will be 1 hour long. We will have two panelists that I'll introduce in just a minute. There will be a 10 to 15-minute Q&A following the presentation. This event is being recorded and will be available on iotcentral.io later this afternoon following today's live event. I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation. We will be reviewing and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Charles Orlando and Ernest Platt. Charles Orlando has 20 years of SaaS and software marketing experience and currently oversees all marketing, branding, demand generation, and sales efforts for FleetUp. He directed the marketing and communication strategies for e-learning provider Ninth House, driving a 150% year-over-year revenue growth rate and enabling the acquisition by Korn Ferry. At Intuit, he drove the point-of-sale merchant services team and created the go-to-market strategy for GoPayment. He also served as Director of Marketing for WebEx Communication, where he built the company's marketing communication organization and played a significant role in the branding, demand generation, and awareness-building programs that led to the successful IPO in 2000 and eventually acquisition by Cisco. Ernest Platt is an IoT and analytics enthusiast and a transportation and fleet specialist. He has spent the last 12 years helping companies transform their businesses in various verticals such as transportation, healthcare, and other industries. Ernest has deep experience in analytics, machine-to-machine, big data, and integrations from roles at AT&T, Sama, Altwix, and Estuate. In his current role at Eris, Ernest is in business development, where he helps companies along their journey of taking their unconnected products to being connected services. Thank you all for being with us today. We look forward to your presentation. The demands of on-delivery fleets are evolving constantly, with a market that is more competitive than ever. The need for real-time intelligence to solve transportation issues before they become costly mistakes is business critical. Fleet managers require a roaming solution, combined with IoT and M2M analytics to reduce time-to-market processes, resolve troubleshooting issues, and bring down the total cost of ownership. In addition, the electronic logging device, ELD mandate for electronic logging devices is looming, and fleet managers must act now to become compliant with this new regulation that takes effect in the United States on December 18, 2017. It is only with real-time business intelligence data that fleet managers and owners can acquire a total vision of their transportation ecosystem. In today's IoT Central webinar, we will outline three major ways your company can benefit from deploying a cellular management infrastructure, including instant global connectivity and management, learn how one platform running on centralized management architecture can make a tremendous difference, reliable network. Cellular connectivity is reliable connectivity. Reliable telematics such as 3G, high-security wireless communication, data storage, and recovery over non-coverage areas. Improved cost control and compliance. With advanced analytics, fleet managers have better visibility into usage to allow for better maintenance and scheduling along with compliance with the ELD mandate. Charles and Ernest, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can now begin as soon as you're ready to go.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. So moving in to understand a little bit more on who we have on the call, I wanted to do a quick poll question to understand what your current company's use for IoT. I'll give you guys a minute to be able to answer. The answers would be, we don't have an IoT deployment at this moment. we would like to manage and repair maintenance, to deliver electronic driver logs, a combination of A and B, or other use cases. So we'll take about a minute for the answers to come in. All right. So currently I'm looking, looks like we have other use cases, and we don't have an IoT deployment at this time. Looks like the start of this. So what I'll do is I'll kind of customize our presentation to go to that, and then we'll move forward. So to talk a little bit more about our company and kind of give us the reason why we're on this call. Aris is your technology partner to help you on your journey from an unconnected product to a connected service. As a company, we have over 250 folks nationwide with offices in Silicon Valley, where their headquarters are, Chicago, United Kingdom, India, and Japan. We're currently privately held, and over 50% of our folks are actually for development and software. So this is a product that we're continuously trying to make stronger and better in the marketplace. A little bit more about our numbers and giving you the scale, robustness, and security of our solution. We have currently over 10 million connected devices working on our network with over 1 billion IoT messages per day. We work in over 180 countries, and we're currently part of the top 10 in worldwide units under our care and management. So that gives you the ability to understand we're a medium-sized company with the ability to scale with a lot of large-based solutions. To go into our question, and we'll do one more poll question real quick, we want to just get a little bit better understanding of what features are most important to you in an IoT solution. I'll give you guys a minute to go over this. We don't have a current IoT deployment. I know that probably will be the highest one on there right now. But if you do, the ability to troubleshoot units in the field, ability to deprovision devices, and last but not least, lower operational costs. So we'll give you guys 30 seconds for that. All right. Looks like we actually have pretty even on a couple of different areas. Looks like most of you are actually more interested in lower operational costs, which is going to be a really key differentiator that I'll go into. Now, within a deployment for an application service provider, there's three main features that y'all are going to want to take a closer look at when selecting an IoT partner, connectivity partner. One part is going to be around global connectivity. With having a service management type of application or an ESP application, you really want to make sure that you have the ability to have a secure network, but also make sure you're connected. You're going to be working with a lot of companies, and you're holding their supply chain, and having some gaps around connectivity is going to be a key area that's going to be a pain point. Our next process that you really want to look at is being able to improve cost manageability. With transportation fleets, there's going to be a couple of onesie-twosies, but most of the time you're going to be working with hundreds, 200,000 units of deployment, and being able to understand what's happening on each and every device and also be able to push out devices quickly and efficiently is going to be a game changer that's going to allow you to affect your market. Last but not least, easy support and troubleshooting. When things are going great, that's always a positive. But with technology, there will always be problems. So having someone that you'll be able to make sure that when there's a problem, how to get it escalated, how to get things fixed in a timely fashion is going to be a key that you're going to be able to, one, help your customers, but two, also be able to attract more folks onto it. To go into each and every area, where I wanted to do was kind of separate each one of these out and be able to go over some of the use cases in each one. For the first one, we have the global connectivity and management. With fleet opportunities that you may be working with, one key area that you want to focus in on is being able to track wherever you're needing to go and be able to get these updates of where these vehicles are or where these trailers are at all times. Having a system that can not only go domestically but internationally, and when I'm saying internationally, I do mean Mexico, I do mean Latin America, or it could even be Europe, Africa, depending on where your deployments are. You want to have one key partner to be able to associate where these devices are and not have gaps within these areas. Once again, there's one key area within supply chain where every company is going to struggle if they don't have these type of systems in here. So you want to make sure from a connectivity management solution, you have connectivity wherever you need to go. Reliability, coverage, and uptime. You have a lot of companies that are going to be looking for use cases of understanding where their equipment are or where their vehicles are every single minute. So having a robust solution that has connectivity throughout the entire solution is going to be a key area. And last but not least, and it needs to be highlighted a lot further, is basic security. Once again, being over a public internet protocol at times can cause a lot of different issues, from being hacked, from being intercepted, from information being pushed out to your devices. Having the ability to connect your devices securely through a private type of system is going to be a key that will allow you to, one, be able to get units in the field, but two, have those units secured and be able to deploy more units without the fear of being compromised. Your next area that you're going to be looking at is being improved in cost control and compliance. With fleet management space, there's a very, very high competitiveness within many different partners. And you have to be able to provide a solution to your end customer that is not only reliable, but also low cost. So having a system that will work with you, depending on how many megabytes you're needing in the field, is going to be a key differentiator. But more than just that, you also want to make sure that you're able to control these devices and be able to remote into them. When things are not going correctly, you want to be able to go in, log into a platform, and be able to see where your devices are by group, by system, and be able to understand what's happening on each and every device, be able to understand how that process is working, and be able to remotely fix if needed. Last but not least is operational efficiency. It's great being able to go into have someone or an account manager to work with, but in order to operationally make your company more efficient in the field, you want to be able to handle more of this information yourself. You want to be able to automate a lot of these systems. So now you're not relying on another company to get your devices out and be able to, let's say, bulk register over 1,000 devices quickly, rather than having to go to some retail store and add 1 or 2 units at a time. This is going to get you guys from the scale of doing 10 to 20 units per day to trying to get out thousands, 2,000, 5,000 units within a couple of hours. To go through a little bit more about the supply chain advantage here, and I wanted to spend a little bit of extra time here because this is going to be a big area of return on investment and an area that a lot of you application service providers really want to kind of take a closer look at and make sure you're utilizing this. Because within your own supply chain, if you're working with another company, if you're constantly calling a sales rep or going into a retail store, this is going to cause a lot of problems in being able to scale. For your first deployment, 1Z, 2Zs, 10, 15, it's not going to be as big of an effect, but once you get into an area where you're looking to deploy hundreds at a time within a day's notice, you want to be able to get through a lot of these areas quickly. So the first thing you would want to have from a system is having the ability where you're controlling the process, where you would have the SIM cards directly in your own inventory so you can test, change, provision, and be able to light up these SIMs as you want. Once these SIMs are currently in your area, being able to light these up, being able to provision them, which means that you're going to test these devices without having to incur the cost. A lot in the fleet space, you're going to be working with companies where you're not going to want to have the deployment all at one time. They're going to deploy over 6 months or a year. So having the ability to test these devices, make sure they're working, turn them off, and then be able to later on ship these devices pre-configured, registered without having to pay for it yet to the end user. The end user just has to plug and play, turn on the device. Once it's turned back on, provisioning will be ceased and it will go into a billing mode where the customer will be charged. This is going to be a key feature which will allow your end customers to be much happier with you because now they're able to turn on their devices, be able to play with their devices, and not have to deal with some of the technical aspects because we have to remember they are fleet managers. They may not understand every single portion of IoT applications as you guys, so this is going to be a key area. One last process around being able to actually deploy efficiently is a lot of transportation companies are not going to be 24/7. They're going to be a seasonal service. Agricultural deployments out in Fresno, for instance, they're going to have usually a rainy season where they're not doing too much transportation. In Canada, during the winter months, there's going to be a lot of areas where it's going to be completely iced off and they're not looking to be utilizing. Being able to suspend, which means that I do not want to pay the entire fee or a monthly fee of data that's not being used, is going to be a key area where you're able to suspend a device for up to 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 6 months, have the customer not have to be paying for the entire process, and then unsuspend, turn the devices back on, and have everything working like it was. It's going to be a key area that you can also leverage and be able to work with your end customers on. Once these devices are out, you also have the ability to manipulate and change them as they're going through. So if an end customer isn't paying on time, you have the ability to suspend. You can also cancel those devices. You can also reconfigure the devices. There's a lot of different processes within that supply chain that gives you a lot of control, and these are all features that should be utilized within your end company. All right. Last but not least, I really wanted to kind of highlight support and being able to troubleshoot the devices. In the world of software and hardware, things will always go wrong. And where you really want to choose a partner is someone who understands what could be going wrong, has pre-configured troubleshooting to be able to help you, and also has SLAs to be able to assist you guys moving forward when things are going wrong and being able to reconfigure. So the first part you really want to make sure when choosing a partner is looking through their support location. Do they have support? Can I call in and troubleshoot? Is it only web chat? Understanding your support is going to be a key differentiator outside of that account manager. 2, easy troubleshooting. I always like to work with a partner to be able to actually go into each and every device and remotely troubleshoot without having to call someone else. And if you have the ability to go in and be able to remote into a device, you have the ability to actually have some easy guidelines and some easy fixes. This is going to switch your protocol from getting issues fixed from 1 to 2 hours down to 1 to 2 minutes. So this is going to be a key area. Last but not least, operational efficiency. being able to go in, remote into these devices, update firmware, understand the technology that you currently have out there, and be able to help support your customers is going to be a key area to help your end customers troubleshoot these devices, and make sure that when you're actually selling to your end customers, that you're able to incorporate certain service language and make sure that you're actually going to be more competitive in the work floor. So to wrap this up kind of within these three areas, we have these three areas that you want to really kind of look at, once again, when you're choosing an IoT partner, as you're moving forward with your application, or even as moving forward with the transportation type solution. Once again, that global connectivity, finding one single provider to have a robust connected platform. Two, having the ability to manage, control, update, and also bulk register a lot of these devices. And three, make sure you're supported. Every company says they can do the same thing, but you want to make sure that the company that you're working with can actually support this, has their mechanisms in place to be able to continue having you guys move forward. With that being said, I'm going to do one last poll question and then hand it off to Charles Orlando, Head of Marketing and Inside Sales for FleetUp. What is your current ELD status? We don't have a solution. We are in the process of implementing a solution. We have an offline solution in place, but it's not connected. And last but not least, we already have a fully connected solution. So once again, I'm going to pass this over to Charles Orlando, who's going to really talk to you a little bit more about the challenges fleet managers have in this space.
Fantastic. Ernest, thank you so much for that. Appreciate being here. And okay, a lot of people are not investing in a solution as of yet, when we'll talk about why some of that is, I think. And many are in the process of implementing. So very, very interesting to be sure. So let me give you some background a little bit on the state of the market itself, and then I'll introduce FleetUp and how we fit in. Today's fleet management is a little bit of a train wreck in that there's so much different information that's out there as regards compliance, regulatory compliance. The ELD mandate has been through a number of different shifts, at least perception-wise, out in the press, where a number of organizations have tried to get it dismissed. Others have been very much behind it. Either way, there's a lot of noise. And what are we talking about when it comes to fleet management? Are we talking about those regulations in the ELD mandate, or are we talking about fuel savings? Maybe GPS tracking or geofencing, or is it telematics, route optimization? The driver's training gets involved. Are AOBRDs still something that can be dealt with today? There's a lot of information out there, and I'm going to be sharing a bunch of that here. But the most important date as regards electronic logging devices and the mandate itself is December 18th of this year. And when it comes down to the regulations and the law stipulates that all vehicles over 10,001 pounds who travel across state lines or who travel 100 miles away from their home terminal has to have an electronic logging device installed. And for those of you who are in the fleet management space as part of your IoT play, or who are dabbling in understanding the ELD mandate, this date has been on your calendar for a while. There are alternatives to ELDs that have been out in the market for quite a bit. And just to give you another acronym, the AOBRDs have been out for a number of years, and that stands for Automatic Onboard Recording Devices. And those plug into the engine in some cases, but more often than not, they're recording specific information, not necessarily logging hours of service. And that's really what the ELD mandate is all about, is keeping drivers and the public at large safe as drivers do their jobs. They have to log their hours of service in order to, and now they'll need to stay compliant with the regulations that are coming down. So that magic date again is December 18th, 2017, with the final date being December 16th of 2019, when all ELDs have to be installed across all vehicles that, as I stipulated before. So what does this mean out into the open world, and how does FleetUp fit in? Well, we offer a combination of services, and I'll get to how we work with Eris in just a moment. But just to set the stage, we offer FleetUp offers a patented FMCSA compliant suite of integrated telematics, GPS, and ELD applications. We provide service and distribution companies and carriers with really unprecedented insight into their operations and give them actionable data, not only to stay compliant, but to optimize their efforts and their vehicles and drivers. The result is maximizing profits by reducing their operating costs and enabling them to comply with the FMCSA mandate. A little bit of trivia, FleetUp was actually the first ELD that was ever deemed compliant by the FMCSA, and we've been built specifically from the ground up for the mandate itself, whereas there are a lot of other solutions out there that have been retrofitted for this effort. So let's get to how we fit in here and what the ELD mandate really means. The government, as I mentioned, the FMCSA and the Department of Transportation have issued this mandate. And what it really means is they are going to be interacting with drivers specifically. They're doing that through an electronic logging device. And when I say driver, that could mean a variety of different people. And this is where our partnership with Eris is very important. These could be company employees where carriers are going to outfit their vehicles. This could mean independent contractors that come in on a one-off basis to work with a variety of different fleets. Or it could mean owner-operators who have their own mini fleet of vehicles who farm them out to different carriers and different freight brokers. But everybody here has to stay compliant. And not only does the driver need to be compliant, but so does the carrier, which is why the government is taking things very seriously. Through DOT inspections on site or on the roadside, the government is going to make sure that drivers are adhering to their hours of service and not going over and staying in compliance. To ensure that carriers are enforcing this, they're going to be auditing those carriers and those freight brokers to ensure that the law is being followed. So the carriers have just as much to lose if they're not in compliance as the drivers do, which is why they need to monitor their hours of service in pretty much real time to make sure that they are not found in violation. This ends up complicating itself a little bit when we start talking about freight brokers. These brokers work with a combination of carriers, and they need the same type of visibility into this entire value chain in order to ensure compliance for all the loads that are being delivered, et cetera. So where does FleetUp play? We play right in the center. We allow carriers with a standard smartphone we allow drivers with a standard smartphone or tablet to monitor their hours of service. And we eliminate drivers' training by allowing voice over HOS, which means that through voice activation and speaking to the ELD itself, they're able to stay in compliance. And our ELD also gives pure visibility into not only if they're going over or found in violation, but to guide drivers through their next actions needed to stay in compliance. And with that ELD and with our fleet management solution, we not only provide that type of compliance, but we also provide real-time GPS tracking, geofencing, proactive safety checks, real-time fuel consumption visibility, proactive and e-maintenance, asset tracking. Like our fleet management solution is extremely robust and one of the leaders in the market. Additionally, we allow brokers who are on kind of the outside of this relationship to get real-time end-to-end load tracking through the carrier to find out where those drivers are at. Instant borderline real-time delivery confirmations, and they get to monitor carriers and drivers to make sure hours of service are being followed. So when we talk about a complete, robust solution, that is what FleetUp offers. Now, why does that matter, and how does Eris fit into this? Well, Eris is critical to our organization. And for a lot of the reasons that Ernest was highlighting as part of his presentation was really part of our consideration before selecting a partner. with a nationwide customer base with thousands and thousands of vehicles that we have to empower with all of the data that I just highlighted and provide that visibility, we can't have any issues. So we had a provider prior to contracting with Aris, and things just didn't work out as well. And then let's get into some of the reasons why Aris was so important to us. First of all, Aris has AT&T coverage, which was critical for us. We have large providers and large carriers working with us, which means that we really need the best 3G network provider we can find. And AT&T is really important as far as coverage, which is why Aris was a natural fit for us. But beyond that, when you start talking about them as an organization, I don't think we've encountered a better team or support team than we have with them. And for the record, I'm not getting paid for this, by the way. They asked if I would volunteer for this presentation, and I'm happy to report that it's a fantastic relationship. Not only is their support and response time unparalleled, but they respond pretty much instantly to anything that we really need. But more importantly, and where the rubber meets the road for us, with our old provider, we ended up really running into a variety of issues. We couldn't activate or suspend SIMs on our own. Moreover, we couldn't deliver them by ourselves. We had to count on that partner, which lengthened our delivery time, and it was a bit of a nightmare from a coordination standpoint. When you're trying to fulfill through a variety of different places and you don't have a centralized distribution center for everything that you need to do, we ended up spending a lot of time on the phone trying to figure out where things are at. How can we get it to our customers faster? Where is the delivery? We didn't have enough visibility. With Aris, we control our own fate, as it were. We do have the ability to activate, suspend, and deactivate SIMs on our own. So getting customers not only onboarded, but deactivated in the event of non-payment or suspension of service or discontinuation of service is something we can do. In essence, we get to manage our business because it's our business, and they allow us to do that. The early results, meaning that we've been with Aris, I want to say since December of 2016, January of this year, the transition was really seamless, and our customers, again, nationwide, are very, very happy with our service. As a matter of fact, I'm not aware of any complaints that we've had about our uptime, our ability to deliver. It's been a fantastic relationship, which is why I'm sitting here on this event today. Just a great place to be. So let me just give you a little bit of information as to why this is so important. Our ELD installs in under 10 minutes under the dash, and with that comes our GPS tracking, which is 10-second GPS tracking. And by the way, that's industry leading. But this is where our SIM card needs to be, and we deliver this on our own. And to be able to deliver it by ourselves, we get to configure our solution and then leverage our relationship with Aris and install our own SIMs and activate them on the fly. It couldn't be a better relationship. And so that ELD that installs also powers our FMS. And when you start talking about that type of real-time GPS tracking or geofencing, and it uploads not only to our servers for our customers' use, but it has to really tie in to the FMCSA's monitoring system. All this rolls up to the cloud to make sure that the carriers and the drivers are compliant with the ELD mandate. And again, we've had zero issues. And quite frankly, we can't have any. When you talk about government compliance, there can't be any problems. So it's been a fantastic relationship, and I think we're looking forward to continuing for sure. Just to give you some brief background on FleetUp, we are a premier provider of intelligent fleet management. We're headquartered in Silicon Valley, and we have offices around the world. We are private, and our executive team, including me, comes from telematics and IoT and SaaS background. So it's been fantastic, and I can't say enough positive things about them. You want to know more about us, you can find out more on our website. But there's a variety of organizations that use us today and count on us. So when we talk about uptime and making sure that we have the right services given to the right people, when you start talking about Samsung and NorCal Kenworth and a variety of other large organizations, you can't have any problems, and we don't. So I'm going to flip this back, I think. I've given a lot of this background, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here for sure. And I think we've got some Q&A, no?
Yeah, Charles and Ernest, thanks for the excellent presentation. We'll get started with today's Q&A session, and I want to thank the audience for their participation. We have great questions that have come in during the presentation, and we'll do our best to get through all of them in the time remaining. During this Q&A session, I'll leave up this screen with contact information for Charles and Ernest if you'd like to contact them following today's webinar. Let's get started. So here's a question. What about the future of LTEM for IoT?
Great. I'll handle that question. So I get asked this a considerable amount of time. If you don't know what LTEM is, it's a new Cat 1M program that's coming out from AT&T that is specifically guided towards machine-to-machine or IoT connectivity solution. It's a great low bandwidth system, but currently at this moment, it is not backwards compatible. So what that means is if you're working with a fleet and your vehicle is traveling between multiple guidelines or multiple states, if there's any gaps of coverage of LTE, the device will not be registered on the network and would possibly not be able to track during those timelines. So for transportation at this moment, LTE-M1 is not a great solution until the LTE footprint gets a lot stronger, which I think in the next 2 or 3 years will actually outgrow 3G and will be a lot better long-term of a solution. Two, if the devices are not moving and you know that they're a good LTE, so think of asset tagging or trailer tracking, this could actually be a great area because you're going to deal with lower cost for the actual modules themselves, looking around closer to the 2G days. But two, you're going to be working off of a low bandwidth. And with asset tagging, with trailer tracking, most of the times you're not going to have a battery or you're not going to be having these devices plugged in. So you're going to be using a lot of battery. And having that lightweight network with low bandwidth is going to make sure that instead of with 3G having a device being able to be out there for 1, 2, maybe 3 years tops, using LTE-M, you can have a device without being charged for up to 5 years and up to prototypically 10 years, but I would probably go closer to the 5 to 7 year mark.
Great, thanks. So let's go on to the next question here, and I think this one might be for Charles. What does HOS aware mean?
Sure, happy to answer. Great question. I think one of the challenges that organizations are going to face as the ELD mandate comes into play is how to manage their business more effectively. The real question, as that applies to hours of service, is which drivers should be assigned to which vehicles, and then which vehicles can make which runs based on the hours of service that are available for that driver. HOS awareness really allows the system to do a lot of the heavy lifting of that equation. What we're really talking about is the magic of IoT meeting modern day machine learning. We know which drivers have which hours available. And FleetUp also knows which routes you're about to try to get drivers attached to. So as a result, we know which hours are available which hours are available for which route. And so you get to assign the right driver to the right vehicle to the right route without having them stop or have to take too long of a break and the load ends up delayed. Deliveries happen much faster. And again, this is really about kind of fundamentally altering the way people do business, which is why it's been such a hot item that we've been discussing, and with a variety of different prospects. Nobody else does that.
So there's a follow-up, maybe related question. Your answer might have been in here. The question was, for FleetUp, which types of carriers can leverage the HOS optimized dispatch you talk about on your website? Charles, you would know that. It's your website.
Right. These are both the same question. This type of optimization for dispatch is what most organizations are trying to provide. Some call it route optimization, but they don't necessarily tie back into hours of service. Oftentimes they have visibility into the fastest route through live traffic, which is what a lot of organizations call route optimization. We do that as well, but then we take that one step further and get the right drivers on the right routes without a delay in delivery. And that's something that nobody else is doing today.
Yeah.
But what types of carriers specifically? Just to make sure that I answer the full question, which types of carriers? That depends. Not all organizations are subject to the ELD mandate. If you're not going over 100 miles away from your home terminal, you may not need an ELD installed. However, you still may want to optimize your routes on a local basis. We do that as well. Organizations that are transporting loads across state lines, of course they're going to want to know. Those are longer deliveries. Those are drivers that have to have more hours available than your standard local delivery driver or local driver. So as a result, it might have a bigger impact to those businesses, but we have organizations of all sizes investigating this as a service.
Great, thank you. We're getting a couple of questions that are more industry specific. One of them is about waste management. Do you help waste management companies?
We do. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Charles, you can answer that first. I'll answer it second.
Okay, so yes, FleetUp does assist waste management organizations for sure. However, from a regulatory and compliance standpoint, there are some specific exemptions based on how they're doing business. So I wouldn't be able to answer that specific of a question on this type of event, but I'm happy to take that offline and address that directly.
Again, just a reminder for the audience, we do have their contact information on screen, so they'd be happy to answer those follow-up questions for you. Ernest, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, and Charles actually answered part of that very, very well, obviously from the FleetUp side. From the ERIS side, we have currently supported a couple of IoT initiatives within waste management. So if you go to our website and take a look at that, I think the company is called Pragmatech, that you can take a little bit closer look on the the use case that we've provided. And with waste management, you can go a lot of different ways. So right now we're thinking closer to the fleet side and being able to have a solution out there to understand hours of service, how the vehicles are doing. But you can also start looking at it from maybe the waste management side. There are a couple of companies that I've worked with in the past that have actually said, how do we connect the bins? How do we connect the actual trash receptacles? And then how do we know if each one is full? And then licensing the technician, not the technician, the driver, to make sure to go to the full bins rather than having the driver go to multiple bins. So there's a lot of really cool things, more than just a fleet space that you can work with the waste management solution. I know FleetUp can do a lot of these areas, and they have great products as well to do that.
I think somebody was commenting using smart bins to help do this, and that's what they're calling that. So,
yeah, smart bins would be one thing that I have worked on and built a couple of these type of solutions.
Great. So let's look at another industry. Would HOS-based services be applicable to the taxi industry and like sort of Uber or Lyft?
They don't necessarily have to log their hours of service. There are certain exemptions. If you're a driver that doesn't go over 8 days driving this way, as an example, you can use a paper log. If you're not going, again, outside 100 miles from your home terminal, 100-mile radius, then you don't necessarily have to adhere to the regulatory compliance from the FMCSA either. Are there still benefits to this type of service? Absolutely, which is why we've broken our system into two pieces. There is the regulatory and compliance, and that's our ELD, but there's also fleet management to know where vehicles are at, geofencing and geofencing triggers, e-maintenance, because, I mean, one of the distinctions that we make with our service is that we are a hidden installation underneath the dash, and we typically install in 10 minutes or less. And because of that, we get a lot more data than most other solutions. There are a number of different solutions out that operate, as an example, on Bluetooth. And Bluetooth ELD devices might be super easy to install, but that strength is also their biggest weakness. As an example, if a vehicle is stolen, oftentimes an ELD and the GPS connection they offer can be utilized to track and recover the vehicle. But if it's a Bluetooth device, all you have to do is unplug it and get rid of it. And that's the end of your kind of makeshift low jack in your vehicle. So that's one example. But how about driver security? In a recent Wired magazine article, as an example, the FBI is quoted as saying that aftermarket devices provide customers with new features to monitor their vehicles, but if I can paraphrase this right, with this increased connectivity, there's also a huge potential for cybersecurity threats. So if you play this out in a real world scenario, if you install something that's Bluetooth because it's easier, how long do you think it's going to take before a 16-year-old with a laptop pulls up next to that truck and with that Bluetooth connection can, with very rudimentary programming skills, access the vehicle's engine, stop it, pull it over, or even more simply, monitor the hours of service, know when the driver is going to pull over, and then hijack the truck. And these aren't me. This isn't me making up some kind of fear mongering to get people to look at Bluetooth differently. I mean, anybody who's ever had a headset used with their phone, who's tried to connect their headset to their smartphone, knows that Bluetooth is not very reliable or secure. That's why we're a pure cellular play. That's another reason why our relationship with Aris is so important. So, you know, I hope that answers some of that question anyway.
Yeah. Well, now let's take the Uber and Lyft drivers out of it and talk about autonomous vehicles. And the question that came in was, will ELD still be required for autonomous vehicles? And I know that is burgeoning industry, and all the policies haven't been put in place, but I would imagine that is something that would be required should autonomous vehicles be available for fleets and for organizations around the world sooner or later. Thoughts on that? I
would think so. Yeah. There's no regulatory statute that exists today for autonomous vehicles because they haven't really hit mainstream yet. My gut, though, is that those hours of service aren't necessarily going to apply to a driver because in an autonomous vehicle there is no driver. I think that's going to end up applying to e-maintenance and the engine itself. When was it last serviced? How long has it been on the road? When is mandatory compliance to pull it off the road and make sure that the engine's running right, et cetera? That's my gut. But I have no data on that. I'm just looking at the market itself.
Okay, thank you. So there's a couple business questions that I want to get to in a second, but there's one more technical, not even technical, but a digital question. This whole notion of the digital twin related to coverage gaps and the need for a system to engage a digital comparable of the offline device. What are your thoughts on that?
I would suggest on that one, there's a lot that's kind of uncovering a lot of technical portion. So maybe what I can do on that one is maybe take that one offline, just because that's pretty in depth, and I kind of have to understand the use case behind that, where the customer is trying to go, what we're trying to do with that process.
Sure. Again, as a reminder to the audience, your contact information is online, and you can see it there. So let's turn now to more business questions. Question comes: can you talk about the relationships between business, IoT, and OT teams, and the importance of this for successful projects?
From a use case perspective, and I'll maybe let me highlight that question real quick. Really, I mean, because that's going to be also going a little bit on Fleet Up. Usually, there's going to be an end use case where the company is looking to be able to do some sort of process. So let's just say we're going to do ELD as our process and be able to, and our use case is going to be, how do we make sure our most compliance? From an IT side, working with a company like a Fleet Up, make sure that an end person doesn't have to worry about creating your own device, having to set up their own device, having to go through the configurations, network, OT, and really hand most of that engineering and process off to a company like Fleet Up, and make the IT person just pretty much have to do a plug and play. Where IT may have to start taking a process is saying, okay, now that we have our application, whether it's pre-made, you make it yourself, or you're working with a company, what integration points are you looking to do? How are you looking to integrate them? And then that becomes more of a service protocol where you'd be working with an SI, or if the companies that you're working with are open API, and I believe both Fleet Up and us, and I'll let Charles maybe answer that question, would be, and then you kind of go from there on a process. Once again, I probably would want to understand exactly what the OT portion and then kind of development cycle of that person to get a little bit further in detail and make sure that I'm discussing that further, but that would be where I would go. Charles, I'll maybe pass it off to you and kind of see if you have a different take.
No, I'd probably want to. I'm with you with wanting to take things offline. It sounds like a very specific question, but happy to. So, I mean, as I guess I would sum this up by saying, as organizations start evaluating service, you know, if you need to understand what Fleet Up did to make sure that this worked right, I'm happy to answer those questions too. So how does it apply with our work with Eris? Happy to take that offline.
No problem. I have it sounds like a simple question, but there must be some logic about why we would ask this question. The question is, why wouldn't I want a dialable number for any of these solutions?
So I can kind of go into that. With a dialable number, this is really a security concern. And if you have a dialable number, so let's just say a 10-digit number, you have a lot of companies and servers, and we kind of understand this from a security concern, that are just sitting there dialing numbers and trying to send data, send processes, send information to these numbers. Now, if you have a dialable number, one of these servers, which could be out in Turkey, it could be out in Russia, it could be out in Europe, Eastern Europe, will start spamming these devices. They don't know that what's actually happening. All they're doing is basically spamming these devices. If you're an application service provider and you're paying for the data, now with a dialable number in the field, you're actually now getting the cost of all this spam and all this traffic. So you're moving up from doing maybe 10 megabytes, maybe even 50 megabytes, to doing a gig, 2 gig, 5 gig, and you're now dealing with an overt situation. So you really want to make sure to, if you're doing this type of application, to not use a dialable number. There are use cases where you do want to use one. This is probably not one of them.
Okay.
In fleet management space.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned security in your answer there. What security processes and protocols are you using?
So we have a good amount of security process and protocols, but the one that I would probably really kind of go in or lead in is doing a VPN login. Many companies, when they start using machine-to-machine or IoT applications, they'll go over and over an internet protocol, which basically means you have all the security and reliability of going over public internet. And I think most of the folks here understand exactly where you can get into some trouble. Using a VPN tunnel basically means that we're putting the information directly on a virtual private network back directly to your end user, and now you have control, manageability. You start working with some of your firewalls and make sure that you're not being able to get hit with bad traffic or having bot attacks, and kind of complete the first portion of your security. Now, depending on the vertical, and with fleet management, that's probably as much security as are needed. But some other verticals are going to need more security. They're going to need data warehousing. They're going to need a lot of other things. And we have different providers and partners that can work with it. And it's really a case-by-case basis on that security protocol.
Great, thank you. And we're coming near the end, so I'm going to ask one last question for you guys before we wrap it up. What about other connection options, Wi-Fi, satellite, and LPWA?
And it just depends on, once again, each and every use case. So Wi-Fi often for transportation is not the greatest solution, just because you're not going to be guaranteed Wi-Fi connection through your entire trip. Say you're going from California back out to New York. There's going to be many, many gaps, and with transportation, you want to be able to understand where your devices are, as Charles was saying, every 10 seconds or every minute or so on and so forth. Now, Wi-Fi as a solution when they get to a docking station, when they're trying to send large files, is actually a really interesting concept. So, you know, you got to look at specifically the use case of how you're using it. Charles has already kind of talked a little bit more about Bluetooth. So once again, you can be using certain Bluetooth protocols, but once again, you're going to be dealing with security issues. And if these devices are not plugged in, as you know, Bluetooth is very, very battery intensive. So having a device connected with a Bluetooth for more than a day is often an issue. Lightweight protocol, like I said, we're talking about M1 as kind of your start. Your second portion, it would be a better solution. Right now, with how the network is currently working and the connection maps, I would not be recommending that at this moment, just because you don't have the roadmap of where these deployments are, how long these deployments are going to be. You know, if you know that your devices are going to be just in Los Angeles, that could be a good solution. But once again, if it goes from Los Angeles to San Francisco, or San Francisco to Seattle, or San Francisco to New York, there's going to be way too many gaps, and you're going to really want to work with a large cellular provider to be able to assure you that you have a connection through the entire process. Hopefully I answer that question. So every use case, you could be using another technology, but I would base every decision on a cellular backhaul.
Thank you, Ernest, and thank you. Great answers to some very good questions. For those of you that asked questions that weren't answered today, we will be sending all unanswered questions to our panelists and the ARIS team so that they can follow up with you after today's webinar. I have just a few quick announcements. Please mark your calendars for August 16th and our next IoT Central webinar, Implementing a Successful IoT Location Strategy, sponsored by Skyhook. Also, today's taping will be available for on-demand viewing later today and can be found on the homepage of IoT Central at iotcentral.io. This brings today's webinar to a close. I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance and thoughtful questions, and a special thanks again to FleetUp and ARIS for their sponsorship, as well as to our speakers, Charles Orlando and Ernest Platt, for their insight in today's topic. My name is David Oro, and I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's event, and I look forward to seeing you all again on August 16th. Have a great day.